Imagine being publicly humiliated by two corrupt cops, tied to a pole like a nobody, only to take over as their boss the very next day. Sounds like a movie, right? This is Andrew's story, a man who turned humiliation into strength and took on a deeply corrupt system. From shocking twists to dismantling a criminal network led by powerful politicians, every step of his journey is a lesson in courage and justice. Stay until the end to see how Andrew not only faced his enemies, but changed the fate of an entire city. Ready to find out how he did it? It was a cold, misty evening when Andrew found himself at the mercy of two officers who had long forgotten what it meant to serve with honor. They were the kind of men who wore their badges like masks, hiding corruption beneath a thin veneer of authority. Without a second thought, they tied Andrew to a pole, laughing as though they had just conquered some nameless stranger. Little did they know, this man humiliated and bound before them was about to become their boss. Life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it, doesn't it? It's a reminder that power is fleeting and respect must be earned, not demanded. The next morning, the precinct buzzed with whispers as Andrew walked in, no longer the victim, but the commander. The same officers who had mocked him now stood frozen in disbelief, their arrogance replaced with unease. Andrew didn't lash out or seek revenge. Instead, he carried himself with quiet strength, determined to lead by example. Isn't it funny how life often gives us opportunities to rise above pettiness? He could have let anger consume him, but instead, he chose to focus on the bigger picture, reforming a broken system. It's a lesson in restraint and purpose that we can all learn from. Andrew's first day as commander wasn't about vengeance. It was about setting a tone. He addressed his team with clarity and conviction, laying out his vision for a precinct free of corruption and abuse. Change isn't easy, it's messy and uncomfortable, but someone has to start it. Think about your own life. How often do you confront what's wrong head-on instead of looking the other way? Andrew's journey reminds us that leadership isn't about titles. It's about courage and integrity. And just like that, the stage was set for a battle far greater than anyone could have imagined. Andrew wasn't the type to sit back and let the dust settle. With Isabella, a sharp-witted detective who had seen her fair share of injustice, he began peeling back the layers of corruption that had festered within the precinct. Together, they uncovered a web of deceit, drug deals, and back alleys, bribes exchanged in plain sight, and a trail that led to someone far more powerful than they expected, Albert Brandt, a local politician. Isn't it strange how those who preach integrity often have the most to hide? This was no longer just about cleaning up a precinct. It was about exposing a system that thrived on silence. But digging deeper came with risks. The corrupt officers Andrew had inherited weren't about to let their secrets come to light. Noguera and Barros, the same men who had humiliated him, were now working behind the scenes to silence him for good. Threats came like whispers in the night, and Andrew knew he wasn't just fighting for justice, he was fighting for his life and the safety of those he loved. It's a chilling reminder of how standing up for what's right often puts you in harm's way. Yet, isn't that what makes courage so rare and precious? With each piece of evidence Isabella uncovered, the picture became clearer and darker. Albert Brandt wasn't just complicit. He was orchestrating much of the chaos from behind closed doors. The man wore a suit of power, but carried the soul of a criminal. Andrew knew taking him down would require more than just bravery. It would take strategy, allies, and an unshakable belief in justice. Think about it, how often do we face challenges that seem insurmountable? Yet, with persistence and the right people by our side, even the most tangled webs can be unraveled. The fight against corruption had always been about justice for Andrew, but now it was personal. Noguera and Barros, desperate to protect their crumbling empire, crossed a line that no parent should ever have to face. They kidnapped Andrew's son, John. Imagine the terror of knowing your child is in the hands of people who will stop at nothing to get what they want. It's the kind of fear that shakes you to your core. But for Andrew, it only fueled his resolve. When life pushes us to the brink, it's amazing how the love for family can ignite a fire we didn't know we had. With Isabella and a team of loyal officers by his side, Andrew launched a daring rescue mission. It wasn't just about saving John. It was about sending a message that no amount of intimidation could break him. The operation was tense, every second feeling like an eternity. But when Andrew finally held his son in his arms again, it was a victory that went beyond words. Life has a way of testing us in the most brutal ways, doesn't it? But those moments also remind us of what truly matters: family, integrity, and the strength to protect what we hold dear. Yet even as he celebrated his son's safe return, Andrew knew the battle was far from over. The corruption ran deep, and every step forward seemed to provoke an even greater backlash. But isn't that the nature of change? It's never easy. It always comes with resistance. Andrew's journey is a testament to the idea that when you stand for something bigger than yourself, you'll face storms, but those storms are what shape you into someone unshakable. And so, with his family closer than ever and his resolve stronger than steel, Andrew prepared for the next chapter in this relentless fight. The time had come to face the man pulling the strings. Albert Brandt, the polished politician with a crooked heart, had operated in the shadows for far too long. Andrew, armed with evidence and a team of determined officers, planned an operation that would leave no room for escape. They cornered Brandt in an abandoned warehouse, a setting as cold and empty as the promises he had made to the people he betrayed. Isn't it ironic how those who build their empires on lies always seem to crumble in the most desolate places? It was a moment of reckoning not just for Brandt, but for everyone who believed in justice. Brandt didn't go down without a fight. He barked threats, tried to bribe his way out, and even attempted to flee, but Andrew's team was ready for every move. The air was thick with tension as Andrew confronted him face to face, not as a victim of corruption, but as its conqueror. There's something powerful about standing up to those who think they're untouchable, isn't there? It's a reminder that no matter how high someone climbs on the backs of others, the fall is inevitable when truth catches up. And in that moment, Andrew proved that integrity will always outlast deceit. But even as Brandt was led away in handcuffs, Andrew couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. The evidence pointed to something bigger: an organization known only as the Serpent. Brandt was just one head of this many-headed beast. Life is like that sometimes. Just when you think you've reached the finish line, you realize it's only the beginning of another race. Yet Andrew wasn't discouraged. He was more determined than ever. After all, true change doesn't happen overnight. It's a battle fought one step at a time. The deeper Andrew and Isabella dug, the more sinister the truth became. The Serpent wasn't just a criminal network. It was a sprawling organization with roots in politics, law enforcement, and business. At its head was Congressman Mark Anthony, a man who wore charm like armor but wielded power like a weapon. Andrew knew this would be the fight of his life. Taking down someone so deeply entrenched in the system required not just courage but precision. Isn't it fascinating how those who seem untouchable often crumble when their secrets are brought into the light? It's a reminder that no one is above accountability. The final confrontation came at a public event, where Mark Anthony stood basking in the applause of an unsuspecting crowd. But Andrew had come prepared. With evidence in hand and the media watching, he exposed the congressman's web of corruption for all to see. The moment was electric gasps from the audience, cameras flashing, and Mark's smug demeanor shattering as he was arrested on live television. There's something poetic about justice served in plain sight, isn't there? It's proof that truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface. With the serpent dismantled and its leader behind bars, Washington began to breathe again. The city that had been suffocated by corruption now had a chance to heal. For Andrew, this wasn't just a victory. It was a new beginning for his family, his precinct, and himself. But isn't that what life is about? Rising from the ashes of adversity to build something better. And while Andrew's journey had been grueling, it left behind a legacy of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, change is always possible for those brave enough to fight for it. Life has a way of throwing us into battles we never asked for, doesn't it? Andrew's journey wasn't just about fighting corruption, it was about resilience, integrity, and the courage to stand firm when everything seemed stacked against him. From humiliation at the hands of corrupt officers to dismantling an entire criminal network, his story reminds us that real change comes at a cost. But isn't that what makes it so worthwhile? Think about your own life. How often do you face challenges that seem insurmountable, only to realize later that those very obstacles shaped you into someone stronger? Andrew's fight wasn't just his own. It was a fight for his family, his community, and the values he believed in. His story makes us reflect on our own battles, whether it's standing up to injustice, protecting the ones we love, or simply refusing to back down in the face of adversity. What would you do if you were in Andrew's shoes? Would you have the strength to confront what's wrong, even when it feels like the world is against you? It's not an easy question to answer, but maybe that's the point. Growth comes from asking the hard questions and daring to act on them. So, as you think about Andrew's story, ask yourself, what fight are you avoiding in your own life? What change are you hesitating to make because it feels too big or too risky? Remember, every great transformation begins with a single step, and sometimes that step is simply deciding that enough is enough. If this story inspired you, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so we can keep exploring stories like this together. After all, life is full of lessons, we just need to be willing to learn them.